which background you are. So then I will be able to conduct this session in a way, in a such a way that can be understood by everyone, right? So Bharat is saying arts, okay. So anyone is from programming background, right? In okay, Jagdish is a 5 years experience Salesforce developer. I think very experienced person is also here with us. Triple E, home science, Android developer. Okay. .NET having 2 years of experience, right? Fresher from computer engineer background, okay. Quick, just in 2 minutes, I would want a reply from everyone, right? I'm not able to see more replies.
Yeah, some of the people have mentioned in the QA section by mistake. I think one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so
developer fresher. I'm a fresher. The Salesforce developer fresher. 223 batch ECE student from is and now studying. Fresher from computer engineering background. Salesforce.
yes,
Right.
yes. So okay, I can see that lots of people are from Salesforce background, and lots of people, some people are from engineering who are still studying, and some people are from different background, right? So no worries. So I will conduct a session like in a way, such a way we can easily understand what we are going to cover. So basically the topic was Salesforce integrations, right? So before understanding the integration, what is integration, we should understand what is the API, right? Basics of API we should understand, right? So the session name would be like basics of API. So my thought is that if we understand the basics of anything, we can do everything on top of that. So my focus will be on basics. So as Ritesh told, I have 10 plus years of experience in Salesforce. Currently now I am working as a technical lead in one of the company, and I am also a corporate trainer and training lots of people in Apex and LWC, right? But how I am able to do all these things, because I focus on basic things, right? So basics are very important. If we understand the basic things, we can do anything on top of that, because there cannot be any perfection in everything. If you know the basics, and every day you will get a new challenge, right? Every day you can get a new scenario. So we cannot say we will be perfect in everything, but if we know the basics, we can easily handle any situations which comes to us, right? So before we start, let's share the agenda of this meeting. So I'm sharing my screen. So let me know if you people are able to see my screen. Okay. So so I would address all the queries after the end of the session. We'll keep 15 minutes for QA session, and we'll talk. Let's focus on the topic. Then all the questions will be answered in the last 15 minutes, right? So Ritesh sir, can you confirm, is my screen visible? Yes. Okay. Yeah. So let's so the agenda of this meeting is what is API, web service, API versus web service, need of API, types of API, when to use. Means there are two types of, basically if you see in a broader concept, there are two types of API, REST, SOAP. When to use REST or SOAP, and then we will go, if we have time, we can cover the understanding of working of REST API with in detail with example, right? So API web service. When we talk about API with we think this is a very tough things, right? But as I said, if we understand the basic things, these terms will not be these terms will not look tougher for us, right? So let's understand the basics. And people are often confused with is API a web service or web service is API, right? So we'll all understand these basic things in the coming. So basically, what is an API? So API stands for Application Programming Interface. This is a basic full form, you can say. As we progress this session, you will understand one by one. We'll not keep on definition, right? We'll talk about some real world example also, so we can relate also, so we can understand the basics of API. As I'm focusing on basics. Why basics? If you go out from the session, I think you will have idea ki, yeah, how APIs work, how what is the web service. If I get a task to work on API and work with web service, how can I implement this? I think I will ensure after this session, if you don't know the API, as many people are very experienced here, that as Jagdish told, he has 5 years of experience, he must be knowing, he must be correcting something to me if I am going to if we can if I am going to teach something, and if you say no, it's not like this, so we can have people sitting here who can correct also, we can discuss also ki, no, this is not a right way, this is the not right thing you are teaching, right? So we can also discuss here also. So basically API is a set of rules and protocols that allows different software applications to communicate and interact with each other. Means if we want to connect two systems, then there is a requirement of API. You can say that in the competitive world, there are so many companies who are collaborating, right? And they want to do business with each other. If they don't collaborate, means they will be, you can say that they will not do much more business. So API is very much required to integrate the two systems, connect the two systems. It can be anything. People understand that API is only to connect with two systems, right? And it's a API, it's available on the web only. So API is not limited to web service only. Web only we'll understand in the later section, right? So basically, it defines the methods, data formats, endpoints, authentications, and conventions that should follow to access and use certain functionalities of a software system. Means if you are connecting to the other system, so there must be a method to connect with. You are trying to what you are trying to access. So that defines the method. What are the methods you will be following to access those data? For example, I am running a company and I want to integrate with Salesforce. Integrate with the Salesforce, and Salesforce is providing some API, exposing some API. So Salesforce will let us know which methods you will be using. What data formats? Means when communication is happening, we are sending some data, right? Sending some information. So what will be the format? What will be the format? There will be some format defined, right? You cannot, for example, we are talking here, I am conducting this session in English, right? Because maybe so many people will be from South India, right? So so though the format of the meeting, as a speaker, I have to speak in English, right? Not in Hindi. So anyone, no one can understand, means some of the people will not understand, right? So what are the data formats? Endpoints. Endpoints means which location you are, from which location you are hitting the data. Means if Salesforce is providing some API, so Salesforce will tell you will have to hit this resource. Means Salesforce cannot expose everything. For example, if you have come to my home and there is a restriction in my home, I will only able to make you sit in my lobby only. I will not make you go through all my rooms, right? Because in the room, there can be private things also for me, right? So whatever exposed by Salesforce, whatever exposed may be by me, you will be able to access. So that is called endpoint, means where is the resource? Endpoint tells where is the resource. Authentications means if you are accessing some data, right, from some other system, so there must be some authentications. It means how to identify you you are a valid user, you have the rights, you have the authorization to access something. So there are authentications also, and conventions means there are some rules, there are regulations which needs to be followed. So basically APIs, from this section we understood that API is able to, by using API we are able to connect two systems, right, to interact with each other. Now web service, this is a very I can say that people get confused API versus web service. Is API and web services are same? So I think there is very thin difference. So let's understand the web services. So basically a web service is a specific type of API that operates over the web. Means it's saying, if you see the word web services, means the services available on web, on the internet, over network, right? So whatever services available on the web, on the network, on the internet, it is called web services. So you say API is also available over the internet. So why you are saying there is a difference between API and web services? So let's understand. So basically, web services, you can say that it's an API. Depending upon the context, we will be deciding it's a web services or API. And it does the same things. It allows software systems or applications that exposes specific functionalities or services over the web. Means we are doing here, we are connecting with the Zoom. So what Zoom has done? Zoom has provided the web services to us. We are doing the online meeting, video conferencing. We are chatting over here. You are asking the question with me, right? All here are around 50 plus people in the meeting, and we all are communicating with each other. So what is this? This is a web service available on the web. Is this Zoom? Is Zoom is an API? Can we say Zoom is API? Yes, we can say Zoom is API also. For example, in my Salesforce programming, Salesforce platform, I will be taking example of Salesforce only because I have the background of Salesforce only, right? So you can relate with other programming language also, whatever background you have. But I will take the example of Salesforce. So for example, I am making an application in Salesforce, and where it is required, I have to integrate the Zoom. So whenever we want to integrate the Zoom, I have to call the API of the Zoom. Means to make a video conferencing, to send the invitation, to show the UI of Zoom, I have to call the API. So in that context, Zoom becomes API. But the context here we are, I'm saying, it's a web service. I hope you understand this difference between API and web service. We will talk more example, right? We'll talk more example. So I think everyone is relating with this example. If you have any questions, you can raise in the last, or if you have any questions, the topic we covered so far, you can ask also, right? So let's, okay, we'll answer this question in last. Okay, let's. So we are talking about web services available on the web, and API can be also available on the web. API which are available on the web is a web service, and the web service company which is providing the web service also provide API. Means we can also integrate with those services, those services in our application also. Then in that context, we call that yeah, it's an API. But is API is restricted to only web services? Not. that this is not true. So here I have written the first line, API and web services can be same or different depending upon the context. The context what we have discussed, we have just taken the example of Zoom, right? We'll take another example. So I think the difference of between these two will get clear to you easily. This line is very important. All web services are API, but not all APIs are web services. Means this line has, if you read again and again, you will understand it's saying that all web services are API, but not all APIs are web services. Means this line is saying that API and web services are not same every time. How? We'll understand. We can see API as a broader concept that includes web services, but not limited to web services. As I said, API is not limited to web services. It is a web services. If that API is available on the web, it is a web services. For example, let's take example of, I'm opening a website, Google Translator. So what Google Translator is doing? If I entered any text, it asks the source language and the means converted language. So I want that my text should be converted into Hindi or English, whatever. So this services, this Google Translate provides us the services, whatever text we write and whatever language we want to convert to, it provides the services. So this is available on the web. So Google Translate, we can say that is a web service. But is that API? Yes, it can be API because Google also provides the Google Translator API. Means if we want to integrate the Google Translator in our application, we have to call the Google Translator API. Means we have to, what we have to call? Means we have to pass some data. This is the source language. What is the converted language? What is the endpoint? What will be the you can say that what will be the response on that, right? So Google provides that. Means Google Translator is also API if we are integrating with our applications. I think this example has given you more clarity on web services versus API. If you are with me, you can message yes. If you are not with me, you can message me no on the chat quickly. Then we can continue. If you have any doubt, any questions, we can discuss. Okay, no, this is not the right way. You are. This is not the right thing. I cannot understand. I could not understand. You can say yes. Everyone is with me. So thanks everyone. Yes. So means if all APIs are not web services, then what is the API then? So read this line. API can be used in various contexts. Not all APIs are necessarily web services. API can be used for interacting with operating system, libraries, hardware devices, and more. Let's take example of software development, because most of the people, we are from the software background. So let's take example of software development only. I don't understand anything other than that. Right. So people are from Salesforce background, right? And from Java background also, .NET background also. So if we are in Salesforce provides so many libraries, either in Apex, either or LWC and Aura. If you are in Java, if you have a Java background, Java also has Java also provide libraries that have so many inbuilt functions, classes. For example, if you have a Java background, I think people also tell here they are from .NET background. So I can remember I have done some coding in C#, right? So there was a concept that we can, I think, we can import something. I don't remember the syntax, but in Java, if you have to use the file operations, you have to import some package. So what you are doing? You are importing some package, and that after importing that package, you are able to do that functionality. For example, you have to perform file operations, read and write. So you just import a package and you will get all the power of the file operations. Is that an API? Yes, I can say that is an API. Means Java has provided some libraries, and by using those libraries, in that libraries, there are so many classes, inbuilt functions. We can leverage the functionality of those without writing the code from the scratch. That is the API also. Let's understand in terms of Salesforce. In Salesforce also, Apex, where there are so many inbuilt classes. Can anyone tell what are the some inbuilt classes in Apex? People who are from Salesforce background can easily tell. What are the inbuilt classes we get in Apex? Quickly. So this session can, if you more interactive, then we can learn something, right? Can anyone tell in Apex? System class, yeah, very, this Salesforce, yeah, system class, right? So as the person who was Salesforce dev, okay, Salesforce dev, he has replied system class. Means if you go and read the system class, it has so many inbuilt functions. System, for example, system.debug. If we have to print something in debug, we don't have to do anything. We don't have to write logic from the scratch. We just use that system.debug and it will get printed in the debug, right? Yeah, exception classes, right? There are so many inbuilt. Other one, I have got only 2 replies. Okay, batchable, right? Database.batchable, right? Other than Salesforce, Dev and Rakit, no one has replied. So I think if you are not replying, that's fine. But I think you have understood the concept key API is not limited to web services. It's other than that. For example, leave it this example also. For example, if you are working as a team, right? We are making some application, right? And in that application, I have made some utility function. You pass the string and it will convert the number. For example, if you are passing a string, that is itself a number, but it will convert into the number. Means I have made this utility and that function is being used by everyone. I can also say this is a API. Means API provides this type of API provides, you can say that code reusability, modularity. Let's see the chat. Yeah, database cacheable is not anything. Database batchable assert, yeah, system.assert equals, right? These all are the methods, right? That's fine, Suvangi. Right. So basically these all methods provide the functionality that we don't have to write anything from the scratch. So these all are APIs. So I think you have understood that API is just not limited to the web services. It's other than that, right? In operating system also there is an API. We interact with operating system, interact with the applications, right? Or whatever we install in our laptop, in our computer, in our hardware devices, right? So there is a API, right? So it's not limited to only web services. So yeah, we can say that API and web services are same if that API is available on web services, web, and that company is providing also a API to interact with, to integrate with another application. I hope this makes clear. So whatever I was saying, I have written here. Let's take example of LWC also. LWC is very famous nowadays people are, all the developers are working on LWC. So there is an import statement also. So for example, you have to access the Apex class method, you have to import that method. Means you are once you are importing that method, you are able to access that server method. What is that? That is the API. If you have to show the toast, if you have to show the toast in your LWC, you don't do anything, you just import one module. I don't remember but it is a platform event, whatever the that module name. Means we are just importing the module and resource, and we are able to access those functionality, right? We also import external JavaScript libraries. We just import the JavaScript libraries and we can access whatever functionality provided in that library. This is also a API. So toast event, yeah, right. That's correct. So in broader sense, if you read, API provide a defined interface that allows different software components and systems to interact and communicate with each other. This includes not only web APIs, but also libraries, modules, and or frameworks that provide pre-built functions, classes, or resources for developers, means us to use. I hope till now you are clear with what is API and what is web services and what is the very thin difference between API and web services. I hope that is clear. Yeah, you are right. The wire is, you import a wire, and and in that LWC we import a wire module, and in LWC we take the power of wire, right? We have the power of wire. So this is also API, right? This is also API. We don't need to do anything. We just import the wire and we are able to access all the power of the wire. And what we can do with wire, right? We can easily call the Apex things without any code. That is the one power of wire, right? Yes. So what is the need of an API? So integration means if you want to integrate two systems, we need integration. As I told, in competitive world, every company has to do partnership with other companies, right? If you are not using API, if you are not exposing API, and if you are not, for example, when we are doing partnership with another company, and if there is a functionality that they need our data in some of the process. If we don't use API, so there is no need of there will be no such benefit for collaborating with the company. तो हिंदी में कहावत है, पता नहीं आप लोग को समझ नहीं आएगा कि, बट हिंदी में कहावत है कि अकेला चना भार नहीं फोड़ता है। मीन्स अकेला आदमी कोई बहुत बड़ा काम नहीं कर पाता है। मीन्स इन इंग्लिश वी कैन से दैट कि a single person cannot do big thing. We have to collaborate, right? So that is where API comes in the picture. As we understood with the example, it's provide modularity also, reusability also. For example, if you are using the inbuilt functions, inbuilt classes, it's provide modularity. If you are making you can say that modular function, means this function will will do this task only. So that is also API. Just call this method and I will provide some input and it will give the result. So it provides the modularity, reusability, and collaboration. We just talking collaboration in competitive world. In this world, collaboration is everywhere required. So that is why there is a need of API. Types of web services, REST and SOAP. And this is I think age-old questions ki what is REST, what is SOAP. Will not go much in technical, but as I told, after this session, you will be able to understand the basics of API, how you can build an API and if you get a task, you have to build an API. If you have to build an API, and you will easily understand what to do, right? So types of web services API. So typically, if you see, there are two types, REST and SOAP. There is one more API which is getting, you can say that popularity, that GraphQL. So I have not included that in this session, but surely we will include this coming session, GraphQL. I hope you also understood, heard about GraphQL, but let's not get into that. So if you see, okay, if there is a type of web services, what will they do? Means they both are used to exchanging the data, depending upon the requirements, depending upon the situation, depending upon the scenarios, we can implement either REST or SOAP. Means both are used to. So basically, this is a bulk API also use a REST, right? So bulk API is basically, if you see that, it's a type in Salesforce. Bulk API, streaming API, metadata API. Behind the scene, what are the type? So basically two types. Bulk API is not a, you can say that it's a, bulk API is built on REST framework only, right? If you see, I hope you understand. So both APIs are used for exchanging the data. Metadata API, streaming API, you are saying, right? So basically the working behind is either REST or SOAP, right? Both API are used for exchanging the data, right? Depending upon the situation. Let's understand the SOAP. So basically, if it's a full form, is Simple Access Object Protocol. And it's basically a messaging protocol for exchanging a structured information between different systems. Let's understand, let's keep it simple. Just as of now, we understand that SOAP is being used to save, SOAP is used to exchange the data. Similarly, a REST API, full form is Representational State Transfer Application Programming Interface, enable different software applications to talk with each other and exchange data by making HTTP request. Means it works on HTTP protocol. We'll talk about what is this, and receiving response in a specific format such as JSON or XML. So we'll talk about JSON and XML also, right? So HTTP is basically a protocol used for communication between clients and servers on the web. Means client is basically which will be the requesting the data, and server will be presenting the data, right? Serving the data. So here is basically a difference between SOAP versus REST, and depending upon this comparison, we can decide with which web services we should go, right? So basically, SOAP is a standardized protocol with predefined rules with tight contract. And REST is architectural style with flexible rules. Let's understand this a simple way. For example, I am conducting this session in English. I have a restriction. I have to conduct in English only. There is no flexibility. I can use another language, right? So SOAP is that kind of API where the rules are very strict. It doesn't mean that REST does not have the predefined rules protocols, but it provides the flexibility also. For example, I can talk in Hindi also. मैं हिंदी में भी बात कर सकता हूँ. But here we can understand this कि SOAP is very much restricted. Stateless by default can be stateful. What does it mean? Means we just comparing this, and upon this comparison we are able to decide. For example, if we understand the basics and when requirement comes, we can decide what to use. So stateless means if I am requesting to you and you are serving the data, and upon the next request you don't know that I was the previous requester. Means stateless means every request is a new request. But SOAP can be stateful. Means we can make the session stateful. Means, for example, if we are purchasing from the e-commerce website, and once we add the product, and then we go to the payment page. So whatever we have added in the product cart, that information should go to the payment page also. Means a state should be maintained. So if this type of requirement, we should go with the SOAP, because if you see that REST, it is a stateless. It does not maintain the state. Means if you have to maintain the state, every time we have to, for example, I have made one request, and in another I have to send another request with the previous information also. We can also make a REST stateful, but there will be more burden on every subsequent request. Cannot be cached. SOAP cannot be cached. Means, for example, I am hitting web services. For example, I want to take some information from the Salesforce. I am using different application. For example, I am using Java application, and I want to take some information from Salesforce. And I am hitting same request again and again. I want every time the same resource. So in the same, every time hitting the server, means bandwidth is going, right? In the SOAP, means the request cannot be cached, but in the REST, request can be cached. Means if you are hitting the same request, the response can be checked in cache first. If it is available in cache, it will be served from the cache, not from the server every time. Means this you can say that this reduce the time, this reduce the overhead on the server also, right? So you are understanding, right, Kika, what is the difference between these? More secure. SOAP is more secure. Means if you are using if you are building applications where sensitive data is being transmitted, right? There are lots of financial transaction happening. So we can go for SOAP. And if there is the API which are very publicly available, there are no sensitive information being transmitted, we can go for REST also, right? Requires more bandwidth. SOAP requires more bandwidth because if you see that data is being transmitted in XML format, and right, and XML size is very big. REST requires less bandwidth. Let's see the chat. Yeah, Subhangi, I will take this question. I did not get a stateless and a stateful. Means stateless means if I am for example, let's take the example of I am a user of what you can say that I am a user of an e-commerce website like Amazon, right? And I have added the product in my cart, and I am clicking on my go to payment page. But on the when I click on the payment page, the previous information is not there. Means after adding the product in the cart, when I am clicking on the go to payment page, the previous information is not getting passed to the payment page. Means this is stateless. Means the server is not able to know that this was the same client which has just added the product and requesting for the payment. This is called stateless. Means every request is a new request. So in REST, in REST, every request is a new request. It is a stateless. Means it does not maintain the state. But stateful means it does maintain the state. Means we don't have to pass in previous information every time in the subsequent request. So that is stateful. Means session can be maintained. So where this type of requirement we should go, we can use SOAP. I hope you understand. So these are the basic difference. And in SOAP, if in SOAP there is a when we transfer the data, it is in XML format, right? But if you see the REST, plain text also, XML also, JSON also, HTML also, means there is a flexibility of the data format. We can transfer data in any format. That's why REST is most recommended, where you can see that in the scenarios where lightweight communications are required, right? And efficient communication is required, because it uses JSON, it is uses plain text, means it you can say that it's reduced the overhead of data transmission, because JSON is very lightweight in nature, right? So for web applications, mobile applications, you can say that the REST is a very recommended API to use. Okay. So that's the things I have explained here. Means as of now, just understand there are two types of API: SOAP and REST. And on the basis of scenarios, requirements, situations, we can go for anyone, right? Either one, right? But let's understand the basic. You can say that how I am going to request the resource, and how I am getting the response, and what will I exactly be doing to make an API, right? Make a successful API, right? So if you see the picture here, it's saying that there is a web app in the browser, and it is requesting some data over the internet, and there is some API. Means we have hit an API. And this API interacts with the web server, and web servers that there is a database, and it tries to fetch the data, then serves the response to the web browser. And you can say that here web browser is a consumer. Means which is consuming the API. Service provider means which is providing the services of the API. For example, if you have, let's understand in simple way, if you want, so as in the starting of the sessions, we talk about the rainy season, right? So for example, if you have a requirement about weather information, if you want to integrate weather information, means you want to know what will be the coming temperature in my city, you want to integrate with, means you are a consumer, means you want to request from the weather app, from the company which is providing the weather API. So that weather API is a service provider. He will tell what are the data formats we will pass, what URL you will hit, what authentications you have to go through, right? And if you are authenticated, I will serve the response. Means I am a requester. Weather API company is a service provider. It will process our request and serves the response to us. So consumer, service provider, we get confused I have to make an API. So who is service provider and who is the consumer? So if I am hitting an API, I am a consumer. If someone is hitting my API, I am a service provider. He is a consumer. Okay. Fine. I hope till now it's clear, right? If you are with me, say yes. Got it. Suvangi Rakhe. Okay. Yes. Thanks everyone. Thanks. So now let's we'll conclude the session in next 15-20 minutes. Now let's cover, if we and we can if you are not able to complete the session, we'll cover in the next session also, right? So several components terms used in the API, REST API. Let's understand. Means HTTP request, means we have to send a request, means in the terms of REST API it is called HTTP request. HTTP response means what response when I am hitting an API, what response I will get, that is called HTTP response. Now HTTP method means it provides what operations we can do with the resource. So there are these types of HTTP methods. Get a resource. If you want to get a resource from the other applications, other systems, we will use get. Post Post means insert a resource. Means if you want to insert a resource in means if you want to insert something new in the other system, you'll use post. Let's understand from the. So we have talked. We have talked so many. Let's understand. So for example, let's talk the example there. So this is a Salesforce. I am a developer. I have my developer org. Okay. So I'm opening my Apex class. Let's I don't remember which class I am at. Let's switch to classic. So basically I am the guy who is we are the guy who have used we have used classic also, right? And later on lightning introduced, but classic remains favorite for me today as well. So I have made a one class my rest resource. Means I have a requirement ki in Salesforce, I have to make an API. For example, some other system wants to hit our API, means want to some do operations in my API, in my Salesforce system. Means they want to provide some information and I will create a contact account, whatever object I want to create, right? Means you provide some information, I will create a lead contact account, right? So if you are using Java applications and in your system you are getting some leads there, and you also want to create lead in the Salesforce, so who will make the API? I will make the API. Means I will be the service provider. Means Salesforce will be the service provider. So if you see that this class is basically called a REST class. Means why it is a REST class? It is called REST class because I have used at the rate REST resource. Basically, this is an annotation. Means annotation change the definition of class or methods. If you know what annotation is, annotation change the behavior of the class. So whenever I put it at the rate REST resource on my class, it becomes a REST, Apex REST. Means I can expose this class to anyone with whom I want to integrate, right? And in this REST class, I have made different method: HTTP get, HTTP post, HTTP put, HTTP patch. Means whatever type of request we will get, the corresponding method will get called. So let's test this. But how can I test? So I will, for the time being, I will test with Workbench. So Workbench, there is a Workbench that provides so many functionalities. It's not an official Salesforce product, but we can test. It provides utilities, right? And we can test this. Now, so this is a Workbench. Means you can treat this is as a client. This is as a consumer, which will be getting the data, posting the data, updating the data. Means get the data. Post means posting the data. Means this is a convention. This is not a you can say that mandatory things. In get method, I can also update and resource. But by going through conventions, we should not do that, right? In the post, I can also delete the record also, whatever I can write here. So now you are able to understand if you get the task to make an API, we get fear I have to make an API. That is nothing. With just a simple class, and just I have put a annotation there with URL mapping. I will let you know what is this. And these are the simple methods. They will provide some information in this method. I will do the operations. Means API communications completed. Now let's test this. How we can test? So I will make the debug on so we can understand how the APIs are communicating. Let's. So here is a URL mapping. So can anyone tell what is the, so for example, I have to hit this class, right? So there must be a URL, means which resource you want to hit. Means if you read this key endpoint, means which resource you want to access. This is endpoint URL, right? So when we make the Apex class as a REST services, as a REST class, there is a URL, right? Now test this. Now there is a slash services. Slash means in the, since I have logged in with through the my Salesforce account, means I am already authenticated. I will not be showing because to show the authentication process, I will have to go through the another postman or something. But let's assume that we are already authenticated. Why we are authenticated? Because I have logged in through the Salesforce. Means Salesforce has allowed Workbench to access its resources. It's exposable, its resources which are exposed, right? So authentication has already done. Means we will not get into details of authentications, right? So there is a terms authentication also. So we have already done. Now we are hitting an API, means hitting the endpoint. So this is the endpoint. And slash basically after this, because it's a relative URL, the base URL will be instance URL of this. So it will automatically come here. Services slash apex REST slash what is the name, whatever name we have given in the URL mapping. So I will give them my resource. Now what method we are, what HTTP method we are using? Get. So when I execute this, the corresponding method will get called, that is get method. Now let's see. So if you see the response, if you see the response and see the debug, let's see the debug also, and you will get understand. So you can see here the debug has come for this Apex class, and once I on the debug, you can see that get method called. Means there were so many methods in the class, but only get method called. Why? Because my HTTP method was get in this request, right? Now there is a request HTTP header. Means if you see HTTP header is being used to pass additional information. What will be the authorization, what will be the content type, additional information. We'll also talk about that. Now request body, since it was a get method, so request body was not mandatory. Means we are not posting any data, we are retrieving the data, right? So in this case, we can also use query parameters also. So what is means I am making you understand the basic terms, basic components, so that you can relate the things. So what is query parameter? So for example, I want to pass a name from here, name equal to Amit, and this get method returns the account which have name Amit. So see this method. What system.debug get method called, and there is a REST context.request.params. REST context is an inbuilt class of the Salesforce Apex, which provides the functionality to access all the parameters, all the bodies of whatever the request coming. So in this, we are able to access the parameters, query parameters, which is coming in the request. Means request parameter is basically, query parameter is basically appended with the endpoint URL. After that, we are getting, and this attribute returns a map, means key value pair. Basically, this is a key and this is a value, key value. So I will get the name. Now I am doing the query. Select ID from account where name equal to param.get name. Means if I have to access some key value from the map, I have to use get function. And what is the key? Name. So the query will become like that key, select ID from account where name equal to Amit. And it will debug. I have made a debug statement and return. And return in the string format. See this method. See this JSON.serialize. Means JSON is an existing class which provides by Apex library, and there is an inbuilt function serialize which converts object into the string. So this is also, you can say that API, right? We don't have to do anything to convert object into a string, right? So I think by once we go through this example, we can relate everything whatever we have discussed, right? Now let's see the debug. Now, if you see the debug, all the accounts present with the name Amit has been come in the response. Since I have only query ID things, so that's why ID is coming. So now you can understand how I have made. Just a second. Yeah, sorry. So now we have understood how we have made a request, what we have passed, what is the HTTP request, what is the HTTP response, what is the endpoint URL, what is the query parameter. Now let's understand what is the request body. So for example, I want to create a contact in the Salesforce. I will pass some data and it will create contact. So I will use do post. So I will use post. So it is also asking for request body. So whatever agreed. So REST resource can REST API can take XML also, JSON also. We'll talk about JSON only. So for example, I have to create a contact here. So what I will do, because in contact, I think there is a last name mandatory in contact in Salesforce. So I will create a last name. Okay, so what I am doing, I am passing first name, last name. Okay, so in the do post method, if you see what I am doing, I have printed debug post method called. Then I have rest context dot request, means this class has the another attribute request body, where we can get all the body which is coming from the request, and we can parse, we can deserialize those requests, because if the JSON is coming in the request, I have to parse it, I have to deserialize it, right? So say every programming language can read JSON data because it is very simple, easy to read, right? And there is an inbuilt method by which we can read the JSON data easily. So for example, I have to pass the first name. So what will be the format of JSON? Key value pair, that's it. First name, colon, and let's say Amit. I'm just giving the basic example. I'm passing this first name Amit, and through this, once I pass this information, this corresponding HTTP post method will get called, and it will read that JSON and create a contact in the system. So don't you think we are making an API call and we have integrated Salesforce with other system? Since here is a workbench, it can be anything. It can be anything. Just for understanding purpose, what are those things, right? So let's execute and see what happens. Is it working or not? So let's see the debug, what happens if it worked or not. My resource. it get called, I guess. So you can see that post method called means what happens? I change the HTTP method to post. So this method get called automatically. You are getting my point now. Whatever of HTTP method we are doing, and if the REST class has corresponding method, it will get automatically called. Post method called, right? And here you can see that one contact has been inserted. How we can test? Let's test key inserted from workbench. So we can see execute once again. Now check the contact. Okay. So you can see that inserted from workbench. Why ignore the spelling, right? So just you can see that, because what I have done in the class, I have put it the same first name in the first name field and last name also. So you can see that here. So the name, first name and last name got populated. So don't we think we have integrated a Salesforce with other system, right? So basically this is whatever you use, REST, SOAP doesn't you just understand the concept. Means there is a request, means what is the request? It request means what is the HTTP method, what method we are using, what is the endpoint, what are the headers we are providing. If there is a required body parameter, what are the body parameter we are passing, what query, if there is required key, what I have to pass some information in URL parameters, query parameter, what we are passing, what is the authentication type, and after the authentication, using the authentication, what are we authorized to access or perform. This, if you understand this concept, I think you can make any API. If you get a document ki what is the API documentation, you have to call that API, so you can easily know what we have to do. So I think we can conclude this session now. If you have any questions and if you suggest any topic further, we can connect in next session and we'll discuss. So if you have any questions, raise your hand. Or can we query only one account with the name Amit? Yeah, you can use limit one, right? So in the system, there were so many accounts with the name Amit. That's why it came more than one, right? So you can limit the query, right? You can put limit in the query. Anyone who have the question? And you can also give the feedback. Is this session was fruitful for you? Did you get anything? Did you learn anything new? Did you understand the concept of the API? I hope I will be able to do so. So if you have any questions, ask here. Hi, when we can get the record session, I want to go through it again. So yes, your Vakha, I think you have registered in our that website. You will get this recording in that. If you don't get, I will provide the URL. Anyone has other question? Thanks, Vakha. I'm stopping my screen share. So anyone has question? We have thanks Suvangi. We have 5 minutes. If you have questions, we can ask. If you suggest any topic, we can cover in coming session, because when I interact with the people who are into Salesforce and who want to come into Salesforce, they all say I want live experience, live project. I am not favor in that. I only focus on basics, and that is how I have survived in the Salesforce for the last 10 years. If you know the basics, you can do everything on top of that. I did not understand, Barkha, what is the name credentials? In what context you are asking name credentials? Okay, Jagdish, I will note this and we'll cover the what are the authentication types. Sure, Jagdish. Anyone wants to ask question, I can unmute also. Thank you. I have one, so Ram is here or not? Let's search. There was one question in QA. Ram. No, he is not here, so no need to reply. Siva. Also, the WhatsApp link is not working. Would like to group. So, okay. Okay, here is my number, and you can ping me if you don't get the URL in any of the group. Okay, fine. Okay, fine. So thanks everyone. Thanks for coming in the sessions, and I hope your more than 1 hour has not wasted, right? And we have learned something, and you have also learned something, right? And we'll keep doing this type of webinar once in a week, right? And we hope we can increase our knowledge also. So thanks everyone. See you in next session. Thanks.